Hey everyone, and welcome back to Dead Mall Walking. Before we get into today's video, check out this older gentleman tossing a clump of earth at his daughter or granddaughter as they enter the mall. A great reminder that you're never too old to be a pain in the butt and have a great time doing it. Or too old to be made a fool of by an automatic door that definitely did not need the likes of me to get it open. Now let's get into the subject of today's video. We're talking Wonderland of the Americas Mall, formerly known as Crossroads Mall, in Balcones Heights, Texas, on the outskirts of San Antonio. The mall has already been covered by a few creators in the scene, including a great video by Ace's Adventures, to the extent that I actually wondered if there was any point me covering it. But through a quirk of planning a recent trip to Texas, I actually ended up spending a couple of days staying right next to the mall. And I'm glad it turned out that way, because I ended up formulating some unique takes on Wonderland of the Americas that I'll share later in the video. Before we get to that, let's do a quick history lesson. The mall was opened in 1961, then called Wonderland Shopping City. Man, John Mayer would love this place. But that date, 1961. The first enclosed mall in the US, the Southdale Center in Edina, Minnesota, opened in 1956, just 5 years before Wonderland. The fact that Wonderland is still open at all, when so many other malls have closed, is kind of a miracle. But, in true Rodney Dangerfield fashion, it doesn't seem to get any respect. A Business Insider article called Dallas's North Park Center, which opened in 1965, the oldest mall in Texas. And an article on oldest.org similarly sings the praises of North Park while neglecting to mention Wonderland at all. I'm not sure if there's any reason for this discrepancy, but it definitely lends the mall sort of an endearing underdog quality. Look at this neon frontage at Raceway and Games. I'm absolutely obsessed. Anyway, at the time of its opening, the mall was comprised of 650,000 square feet of retail space, with 62 stores and 2 anchors, a Montgomery Ward and a Handy Andy supermarket. The ribbon at Handy Andy's opening was cut by none other than John Wayne. Yeehaw! The mall is currently around 2/3 occupied and is anchored by a Super Target, Burlington Coat Factory, Hobby Lobby, and Ross Dress for Less. In addition to the food court and the regular market, the lower level is now home to various healthcare providers, call centers, and immigration offices. Honestly, it feels like a smart move because it's filled out a lot of space that I presume would otherwise be sitting vacant. Upstairs, it feels more like a traditional mall, with various mom and pop stores and a large space that's been sectioned off to create an area for pop-ups and small businesses called the Little Shops at Wonderland. We'll check out what that looks like a bit later. It seems like the mall has had its ups and downs over the years, with various anchor stores coming and going. A large Rhodes Brothers department store adjoining the mall was built in 1963. That 150,000 square foot space was taken over by Liberty House in 1977, only for them to close up shop in 1980. And despite ongoing renovations throughout the 80s, including another new anchor store, new tiling, lighting, the addition of skylights, and a rebranding as Crossroads Mall, this place was half empty by 1990. And that may be due to the stiff competition it faces in the area. North Star Mall, located just a few miles away, houses 200 specialty stores and has been going strong since 1960. That's another mall that was opened before Dallas's North Park Center, by the way. I visited that mall on a Saturday morning and it was absolutely packed. I could barely get a parking spot. It's also home to the world's largest pair of cowboy boots. But nobody needs to see the dumb selfie I took in front of those. Whoever said that malls are dying has clearly never been to North Star Mall. Then, in San Antonio proper, are the shops at Rivercenter. This mall, located right next to the Alamo, is home to around 100 stores, and is partially housed in this stunning old building. And the shops at Rivercenter opened in 1988. That timing, which lines up closely with Wonderland's struggles in 1990, probably isn't entirely coincidental. We also had some very strange posters to have up in March, and some very cute patrons. Let's head back to the little shops at Wonderland. According to their website, leasing a space in here starts at $350 a month, although it looks like you can only open up from Wednesday until Sunday. I'm not an expert on leasing, but that rate feels reasonable to me given that leasing a standalone unit in a mall could potentially cost you thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. Of course, it probably depends heavily on the type of products you're selling. But there were some interesting little specialty stores in here, and it's definitely a creative use of a large space that might otherwise be sitting empty. And of course, I love the original tile flooring, which sort of reminds me of a washed out Toys R Us. I'll admit that I wasn't entirely sure what to expect when I arrived at Wonderland the Americas. I drove through some neighbourhoods that weren't exactly the best to get to my hotel, and I wondered if it might feel a little sketchy inside. But that's not the vibe I got. I have a couple of Mexican relatives, and walking around here, especially downstairs, felt very much like being in one of their homes. Bright colours, trinkets hanging around the place, and lots of hustle and bustle with people coming and going. It felt as much like a community centre as it did a mall. Case in point, this guy taking the time to water every plant individually. And it's reflected in the regular events hosted at the mall too. In addition to the weekly market and the live Mariachi Band, people were streaming in for a performance of Kinky Boots at the Wonder Theatre as I walked around one evening. Some of them dressed to the nines, I might add. Despite the presence of some empty liminal corridors like this one, as Ace acknowledges in his video, it's difficult to call this place a dead mall. Because during my time in and around it, it felt so alive. As creators in the dead mall scene, we're kind of forced into making snap judgments about the places we visit. I've been warned by hotel staff to stay away from malls with bad reputations, like Eastdale Mall in Montgomery, Alabama, only to arrive and find them to be fun places to explore. Then again, I tend to film early on weekday mornings so I don't have to navigate crowds or edit out tons of people from my videos. As you can see, that wasn't exactly an option on a weekend at Wonderland. Which brings me back to the fact we get these tiny little narrow views of places that locals have years or even decades of history with. It would have been all too easy for me to visit this place on a weekday morning, declare it to be totally dead, and move on. That's why I'm so glad I was able to spend a weekend exploring, checking out the market, and getting a feel for how this place is still thriving. Even if it's not doing it quite like a regular mall would. But there's a real can-do attitude here, from the medical facilities taking up spots in the mall through to someone walking around watering all the plants. No fake plastic trees here, sorry Radiohead. There's still a lot of care and attention going into this place. I just get the feeling that many of the parties involved don't necessarily have the budget to back it up, which is a shame. Given that it's rapidly approaching its 65th birthday, the mall doesn't need too much sympathy from me, and I have no doubt that its patrons will be out in force for a big celebration. One area of the mall that could maybe use a little more love is the food court. It seems like all of the national brands have bailed on this place. I'm assuming at least some of them were here to begin with. So there's no Subway, Panda Express, Sparrow, or any of the food court staples. But that might be because this isn't a food court. What we're rapidly heading towards is the Palm Pavilion, and we will put some respect on its name. If you find yourself here and on the market for some food, Goomba's Pizzeria is pretty highly ranked on Google, and it looks like they do some good pizza. Unfortunately, I was still recovering from a bout of food poisoning, so I didn't get to try it out. My lunch consisted of Tums and Pepto-Bismol under a palm tree waving in the breeze. So exotic. This area of the mall felt very Starcourt to me, although I wonder if that'll turn out to be the curse of Stranger Things. Every octagonal food court I ever visit for the rest of time will remind me of Starcourt Mall. I guess only time will tell. Despite the seemingly endless stream of sofas it has at its disposal, I do have my concerns for this mall. As quirky and unique as it might be, I get the impression there's a game of whack-a-mole going on. Fountains drained, escalators switched off, and weird superliminal sections of the mall like this one, for example. It's inexplicably still open to the public, despite it feeling like you're walking through a building site. I have no idea what they're doing on either side of this taped off corridor, but I stuck my nose in there and it looked expensive. I hope that Crossroads Mall Partners Limited, the current owner of the mall, have deep enough pockets to do what they need to do in order to get everything finished up. Also, there was a guy outside this entrance hollering at literally every woman that passed and trying to get their phone numbers. When I walked past, silence. Guess I wasn't his type. There's something truly special about this mall. Where else can you come out of the arcade, head down a flight of stairs, and take in a live mariachi band? Despite how it may have looked at the beginning of this video, I was glad to see that these guys did have an audience of folks, some of whom were singing and clapping along. And just in case you needed any more evidence that malls can be community hubs, more than somewhere to shop, check out these two ladies practicing their dancing skills in an otherwise empty corridor. Just another dead mall, Wonderland of the Americas is not. With all of its cross-cultural quirkiness, innovative business practices, and a sheer unwillingness to roll over and call it quits, I dare say this place could be a template for malls all over America. Here's to it sticking around for another 65 years. Thank you for checking out this video. As we make our way out of the food court, the Palm Pavilion, please don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. It's a big help. As always, my Instagram and some ways to support the channel are linked in the description below. Until next time, goodbye from Wonderland of the Americas in San Antonio, Texas. Please don't forget to be wonderful today.